I, 30F, spoiled my friend's bachelorette party and am now being kicked out of the wedding party. My friend Joanna, 29F, is getting married, and I was incredibly happy for her. Joanna is my co-worker, and we have been working together for the last 7 years. She is one of my closest friends, and I was so honored when she asked me to be a bridesmaid for her wedding. I also know her fiancé as he also works with us and is a friend of mine. Most of the other bridesmaids, including the maid of honor, are Joanna's college friends, and they have all been nice to me. They planned a nice weekend bachelorette party for her last weekend. We rented an Airbnb, and the plan was to hang out, drink, and play games all night. There were around 10 girls, all the same age as me. We arrived in the morning and spent the day by the pool. In the evening, the plan was to dress classy in cocktail dresses and hang out. Things were going well, and we were playing the normal bachelorette party games and having fun. Around 10 p.m., there was a knock on the door, and the maid of honor made us all be quiet for a surprise. She had hired 2 male performers for the bachelorette party. I am married, and I was shocked as no one mentioned this was the plan. I was uncomfortable but decided not to cause a scene as others were screaming and happy. However, as soon as they started dancing, the performers started calling out to some girls, and the girls were getting very handsy with them. At this point, I excused myself, saying that I needed water, and went to the pool area. I was uncomfortable by this point and called my husband. I told him what was going on, and he told me that he trusts me and not to do something I'm uncomfortable with just because of peer pressure. I asked him to stay on the phone and talk to me. After around 15 minutes, 3 more girls also came out to where I was sitting and sat next to me. They were also uncomfortable with the turn of events. I told them I was talking to my husband, and they also took the opportunity to call their partners or text them. They told me that they were also not told about the male performers, and the maid of honor took the liberty to arrange that as a surprise for everyone. After a while, the noise from inside started to dwindle down, and we thought the male performers had left. We went inside to check, and there was a bunch of explicit, inappropriate stuff going on. I was shocked to see that Joanna was with one of the guys. I screamed in disbelief, which startled her. I just got out of the room, and the other 3 girls and I went for a drive. We returned after an hour around midnight. The guys had left, and all the girls were sitting around as if they had seen a ghost. After we left, it seemed like Joanna suddenly had an anxiety attack. She started crying, and they kicked out all the male performers. She wanted to talk to her fiancé, but the girls calmed her down and kept her from calling him and telling him what happened. Her friends then took Joanna to the bedroom, and the maid of honor told us that it was rude for us to leave in the middle of the party. She looked at me and said, "You had to be the center of everything. This was Joanna's night, and you ruined it." I was too shocked to say anything and just decided to call it a night and went to sleep. The drive back was awkward, to say the least. The 3 girls who followed me outside decided to carpool with me, so I didn't have to talk to the maid of honor or Joanna the next day. On Monday, Joanna skipped work and called me in the evening. She said that the other bridesmaids do not feel comfortable with me being in the wedding party and asked if it's okay with me. She also told me that she hopes I follow the girl code and not talk about what happened over the weekend. She said that she was drunk, had no idea what was planned, and just went with the flow. That evening, the maid of honor sent me a threatening message, saying that I ruined a perfect weekend for Joanna and should not talk about what happened to anyone. I have already told my husband, and he said that I should just step away from the drama. He also offered to go on vacation during the wedding weekend and skip the wedding, as Joanna may not want me to be there. I feel so bad about what happened over the weekend. Joanna has been actively avoiding me since Monday. I was so happy for her, but I just cannot unsee what I saw over the weekend. I also know how much Joanna adores her fiancé, and it must have been just a lapse of judgment for her in that moment. I do not know how I should have acted, but the male performers just crossed my line. Am I in the wrong for ruining Joanna's bachelorette party, and was there any other way I could have acted in this situation? The guilt is just eating at me, and I don't know what I should do now. Update 1. I wanted to provide an update since a lot of people are messaging me about telling the fiancé. To recap, the bachelorette party happened 2 weekends ago, and last week was especially awkward. Joanna asked me on Monday if it was okay for me to step down from being a bridesmaid. I agreed, and my husband also suggested we skip the wedding altogether, offering his support. I didn't tell the groom, who I'll call Jason, but he came to me on Thursday and asked why I had stepped down from being a bridesmaid. I told him I didn't want to discuss the issue and that Joanna knew the reason. I didn't want to lie to him, but I also didn't have the courage to tell him the truth. On Sunday morning, Joanna called me and asked if she and Jason could come to our house as Jason wanted to talk to me. She sounded like she was crying on the other end. I said okay and told her to come by whenever, since my husband and I were at the gym. Jason and Joanna both arrived together, and we invited them in. Jason was stone-faced, and it took a few minutes before anyone said a word. Finally, Jason looked at me and told me that he considered me his friend and wanted to know exactly what happened that night. I told him the whole story about how we had a nice weekend until the male performers came. I explained that I left the room after some girls started dancing with them because I didn't feel comfortable. My husband backed up my story, as I was on the phone with him the whole time after that. I explained how the other girls and I went back in after 30 minutes and saw one of Joanna's friends, who was married by the way, giving one of the male performers some sloppy toppy. Joanna was also dancing with one of the male performers, who was completely unclothed at that point, and I was very shocked and screamed Joanna's name. I admitted to slightly lying because, from my point of view, I could see the dude's back and Joanna was sitting in front of him, so I thought something might be going on. However, I wasn't sure and didn't tell Jason about it. I explained that I left after that and came back to find Joanna crying and wanting to call Jason. Joanna started talking at this point and told Jason that she was also surprised to see the male performers and did not want to spoil the party. It was the maid of honor's idea, and the other 3 friends, also all married, had paid for them. That was the reason none of the others knew about it, as it never showed up in the expenses we were tracking. Joanna thought they were just for entertainment and didn't expect things to get intimate and got carried away and did not stop them. When I screamed, Joanna suddenly realized how wrong everything was. I left, and Joanna realized how bad the situation looked. She wanted to call Jason immediately to let him know what happened, but her friends stopped her from doing that because they were worried their husbands would find out. Joanna was begging Jason to trust her, and she did not kiss or do anything inappropriate with the male performers. Jason was really upset, but he asked me if Joanna really was crying and tried to call him. I confirmed it, as the other girls had told me that. Jason hugged Joanna and told her that he trusts her and loves her. However, she must cut ties with the maid of honor and the other 3 friends because they caused the incident and tried to sweep it under the rug. He was also adamant that Joanna tell her friends' husbands about the incident, but Joanna was very reluctant to do that. Joanna said she would stop hanging out with those girls and came to hug me. She was very apologetic, and I could see from her eyes how relieved she was. She apologized to me for putting me in that situation. Overall, she dodged a huge bullet. I really hope I did the right thing and Joanna will never do something stupid like this in the future. From what I understand, one of the other girls, who came out with me, told Jason about the incident after he became suspicious, and he confronted Joanna. I again want to thank everyone for their suggestions, as they helped me think through the whole situation.